Hello everyone, this is Outstar and welcome to another Bloodlines 2 related video. We had a new clan announcement this week and I hope that both from the title of this video and from this, you can guess what week it is. The week of the Rose, the week of the Toreadors. A beautiful way to die, as the developers said. Gotta be honest, the video, the animation that they shown for Toreadors is my favorite so far. And Toreadors, they grew on me a lot throughout the ages. See, when I played Bloodlines 1, I think my own perspective on Toreador clan was as shallow as I often see in a lot of comments under my videos. Toreadors are seen as those shallow, beautiful vampires who are all about seduction and love and are good, and who the hell would want to play a good vampire if you can be a menacing beast, right? Well, those of us who love Salubri are different, but I'm not counting that. See, I'm very happy that I changed my mind, and this actually happened back when I started role-playing the V5, and still up until this day I am role-playing a singular character in V5 who is actually a Toreador. Speaking of which, every one of you can actually roleplay with me, and if you want to join me, I will give you more details at the end of this video. So the basic description of Toreadors that you will stumble upon if you research them, like the first thing in Google, is that they are the clan of beauty, the clan of artists, the clan of creation, of humanity. Well, what people won't really tell you at first is that this beauty can be interpreted in various ways. And I think we should start with that to give you a full perspective. A fashion model overdosing on a bad batch of heroin, a YouTube clip of perfectly executed beheading, the dazed eyes of a child who has seen too much, or the reflection of the moon in the pool of blood. What Toreadors believe is beautiful may be extremely different from the general human sense of beauty. It doesn't have to be a beautiful dress or a beautiful person or maybe a painting or a song. It may be also the research. It may be also the smell of a book. It may be also the way how people scream when they die. This Toreador sense of beauty is extremely vast and can really apply to any sort of a character, from those actual artists, painters, musicians, to researchers, archaeologists, and martial artists, for example. Also, in my opinion, Toreador is one of the creepiest clan of the whole Vampire the Masquerade. You may argue with me on this point, but fortunately, a lot of people who roleplay with me share this predicament. When you are mortal, well, other clans can fuck you up in a lot of ways, usually in the ways which are very quick and painful. Let's say the blood boil of the Tremere, or the punch in your face from the Bruja. The ways Toreadors can harm you and the things that Toreadors can do to you are way more vile and go for longer. The evil side of Toreadors is very interesting, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later in the video. We should start with what we start usually, and that's the history. The antediluvian of Toreadors have two names, which are passed both by the kindred historians and by the Toreadors themselves. Some people call her Arikel, some people call her Ishtar. What we know is that she was a twin sister to Malkath, the antediluvian of clan Malkavian. And for those passing the history of Arikel, they say that she was an artist, sculptor and painter in the first city. So Arikel, upon her embrace, she apparently drawn a mural that described the history of kindred from the past, the present and the future. Cain, upon seeing that mural, saw a horrible fate for Cainite race and cursed her as the effect. The curse of Arikel and the curse that she passed to her followers later on, to her child and their child and their child, was a curse of being extremely prone to beauty. And by prone, I mean if a Toreador would see something they considered beautiful, there was a chance for them to get completely hypnotized by them and not react to anything around them, even to the point of falling in love with the sunrise, when obviously it is deadly for you. Toreadors say a different version of the story. They say that their antediluvian was called Ishtar, and she was actually the only child of Cain who was not cursed by him. Ishtar was worshipped in the ancient Sumer. Is that how you pronounce it in English, Sumer? She was worshipped for her beauty and considered a goddess. She would meddle with a lot of ancient kings who we know from the history books or from the myths. Say Gilgamesh or King Minos. One of the stories that Toreadors pass to their children is the story of Ishtar and Minos, where he begged her for her gift of embrace. She didn't want to agree, but finally she agreed to embrace his son, who was later known as the Minotaur. Minotaur had the face of a bull and was locked in the labyrinth where he was fed virgins up until he was killed by a hero called Theseus. Is that right? We don't really know what exactly happens with the Toreador Antediluvian nowadays. There is one story saying that Nosferatu Antediluvian both lasted for her and also wanted to destroy her out of his jealousy. And finally, with the help of Set, the antediluvian of followers of Set, known now as the Ministry, he managed to capture her, kill her, and eat her heart. But other stories say that Toreador Antediluvian has actually awakened from torpor and is still alive, now living somewhere in Greece. Toreadors were historically very much connected with the Camarilla, and Camarilla was actually co-founded by them. A lot of the modern concepts that Camarilla embraces are thanks to Rafael de Corazon, whose history I really recommend you guys to read because it's very interesting. He's a very good example of the poseur Toreador, the Toreador who doesn't actually encapsulate any talent himself, but because of being beautiful, enticing, charming, and persuasive, he was able to bamboozle everyone into believing in what he said. And with his charismatic speeches, he started the concepts of the masquerade and the Elysium. The current concept of the masquerade, which all vampires, not even the Camarilla ones, try to adhere to, well, sounds the Sabbat, but you know, that's a minority nowadays, is thanks to the Toreadors. Now, about anti-tribute Toreadors, so the ones who left for the Sabbat, they are actually considered mostly a different bloodline, and that is mostly because of their different abilities and different curse. They got the nickname perverts, and their difference in between the regular Toreadors and the anti-tribute ones is that those who are in the Sabbat from the Middle Ages interpret beauty usually in the form of emotional, physical, and mental suffering. Torturing is beautiful, hurting humans is beautiful, the screams, the pain, the blood, all of these things that are not really much accepted in the human society. Additionally, they own the vicissitudes discipline, which is the same as Tsimitis. This ability enables them to shape bodies in a very gruesome creations. They can both shape themselves, but they can also use mortal and ghoul bodies to create those deformed creatures, which are the subject of art, of course. If a beautiful vampire invites you to their basement, and in that basement you will see a lot of bodies entangled together in a beautiful art form of 5 hands and 3 dicks forming a crown around their heads, for example, well, that's probably a Toreador anti-tribute. They are creepy, but also very interesting. Toreadors obviously thrived throughout the Renaissance and the Victorian age. Among Toreadors themselves, you can name people like Shakespeare or Da Vinci, and most of the creations of art that we learn about in history books nowadays were, according to World of Darkness, the creations of Toreadors. They also keep on thriving today, mostly because back in the days the Toreadors have to aim for the higher classes only. Art was something that was not really given to the lower parts of the society. They didn't really have time for leisure, they didn't have time to appreciate whatever beautiful things Toreadors created, because they were too busy surviving and not dying. Nowadays, with art being a very cheap resource, with everyone being able to go on Pinterest or YouTube or Twitch or Instagram to watch these beautiful people doing beautiful things, art is available for everyone, and so Toreadors' influence spread among the society. It doesn't matter anymore if you are poor or not, you are able to enjoy them, to get enticed by them, and this obviously means that Toreadors have bigger and bigger herds of followers. And well, today the meaning of followers changed considerably. It's not anymore just a few people on the party that follow you from one minor and estate to the other. No, it's thousands of people online. This is also the reason why Toreadors are considered one of the most modern clans nowadays. When you think about modern vampires, people very often forget how many of them are hundreds of years old and very archaic. Archaic. Jesus, English is so difficult sometimes. You know what I mean? They can't use the phones, they can't use the computers. What is this thing? How do I even? Monsieur de Sade, is that a sex toy? A lot of vampires just don't know anything about these things, and a lot of vampires, especially the Camarilla ones, are openly rejecting the technology. especially in the V5 timeline. Technology actually caused a lot of the masquerade breaches, a lot of vampires trying to search for their victims online, caused a lot of trouble. Even the Nosferatu secret network, Shreknet, which you may remember from Bloodlines 1, it has fallen and Second Inquisition was able to breach it. So a lot of people from the Camarilla openly rejected technology whatsoever, and they are refusing to use internet, for example. Toreadors, well, they wouldn't really be able to thrive without all these modern technologies. So by default, Toreadors are usually way more modern and up-to-date than their other vampiric counterparts. They know what the new apps are popular, they know what's going on online, because that's the easiest way for them to gain following, which they need for blood, for inspiration, and to tickle their egos a bit. Anarchs are actually one of the most modern parts of the Toreadors because historically Toreadors didn't really find anything enticing within the Anarchs. But nowadays Anarch Toreadors are called the Abstracts, and I think what mostly pushed Toreadors towards the Anarch field was the art censorship. For example, in the Soviet Union, Camarilla, who was very much tied with the government, had Toreadors working on all these propaganda posters and social realism type of arts. Anything with Western influence in it was considered to be blasphemous and bad and burnt. So this sort of movement within the Camarilla, mostly the propaganda and any chains that Camarilla tried to put on Toreadors to mostly make them useful instead of free, caused them to break out, and that's how the Abstracts happened. Abstracts believe that being outside of the Camarilla gives them the most artistic freedom and the freedom of expressing themselves, because again, not every Toreador is an artist. So the original division within the Toreador clan, which nowadays is a little bit more blurred, was a division in between the artists and poseurs. Artists were the ones who were actually creating something, and poseurs were the ones who didn't really have an ability to create anything, but they appreciated the talent of others. Any sort of art managers, patrons, those who gave money to the artists to make something beautiful, they could also be Toreadors. And of course, historically, we mostly know about these Toreadors, which either were extremely amazing patrons or extremely amazing classic artists. And I think that classic division causes a lot of stereotypes to circulate nowadays. Because again, Toreadors are not all about those paintings, music and theater. And V5 does both a good and bad job about it. Bad because the archetypes of Toreadors, they are mostly very much connected with the stereotypes. You have the archetype of the l'artiste, so the artist, the creator. You have the stage manager, so agent for other artists. You have a gadabout, a person who awes people around him or her with the charisma, with the persuasion, with a good talk. Gadabouts can also be working in some corporations as the business moguls, the PR managers and stuff like that. Then you have the patron of the arts, so obviously someone who collects the arts or funds it. And last but not least, you have the Thespian spy, probably the most interesting of the bunch. It's a Toreador who makes an art out of the gossip and out of passing information. So imagine a Nosferatu type of a character, but actually very beautiful and enticing. Oh, you just want to pass them all your secrets so they can spread it throughout the whole Elysium. But yeah, I think all those archetypes which are in the book are pretty much stereotypical, and I like to take them a little bit further myself. The part of V5 which I like about the Toreadors is the two different lore sheets for two characters that were one of the most known Toreadors in the modern history. And by spending points in these lore sheets, your vampire can gain some influence in very different manners, some knowledge, or some social status. One of them is the Descendants of Helena, and that's about the Helen of Troy. Descendants of Helena, as typical Toreadors, they do own talents, they do organize amazing parties, they own nightclubs, etc, etc. But then the other one is the lore sheet of followers of Carmelita Nelson. And Carmelita Nelson is a totally different kind of a Toreador. She's an archaeologist. And her sense of beauty is different than a typical art. She senses the most beauty in the storytelling. As an archaeologist and a researcher, she finds antediluvians and elder vampires buried somewhere in the tombs. And she even sometimes wakes up the antediluvians to interview them and to get the story. I really like the difference in between Helena and Carmelita and how book gives you the information on both of them so you can see how different Toreadors can be. But now let's get to my favorite part, and that's why exactly Toreadors are creepy. I told you at the beginning, I consider Toreadors to be one of the creepiest vampire clan, and I'm going to tell you why right now. First of all, and the first argument which I always tell people is that Toreadors are obviously mostly about the willing victims. They are into the victims which want to be sucked by them and want to follow them back home or to the dark alley. Mostly home because dark alleys are gross. See, the thing about Toreadors is that they are all about willing, but they are not all about consent. They're going to cause this willing in supernatural, artificial means. So as much as if you're a single guy and you go to a nightclub and you see this beautiful velvet velour from Bloodlines 1, and then she leads you to the little lounge with comfortable couches, and then she bites you, and that feels more like a kiss than anything else, well, of course, that can be a dream. Imagine that you are a Catholic guy, a pastor, for example, married to a beautiful woman, known in the local community. You're trying to be the best man you can be. And then one day when you come back from the evening mass, you meet this strange guy. And this guy, for some supernatural means, causes you to think periodically that you're gay. You jump into his bed, you don't really know why and what the hell is happening, but you do everything that person tells you to. And then that weird man leaves you alone, and you are questioning your sexuality forever. You're questioning everything that you are because of what happened. And that's really creepy, isn't it? But that doesn't even end there. That's like the basic creepy stuff. In my opinion, one of the abilities that Presence Tree has in the V5 is one of the creepiest abilities that vampires have and can use against the mortals. And that is the ability of the Lingering Kiss. It's only level 2, I believe, so it's very easy to get even for the fresh Toreador vampires. And what the Lingering Kiss does is it's basically a bite, and usually vampiric bite is very pleasant and nice, and it doesn't really feel bad unless you are a Clan Giovanni or unless you have a specific flaw that causes your bites to be painful. But Lingering Kiss is way more than pleasant. It's way more than an orgasm. It's way more than the best drug you can have on this planet. Once a vampire uses a lingering kiss while biting a mortal, and the ability is free, you don't even spend blood on that, the mortal will be immediately addicted and will do anything to be bitten again. Even if that means that the mortal will fall on its knees before you right at that particular moment and beg you and drag your clothes just to bite me again, although it would mean that they will die because they don't have enough blood. They will do it, and they will chase you. They will try to find you anywhere just to get that high again. It's so creepy because it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what's your background as a human. You can be a priest. You can be a recovering addict. You're getting addicted just like that, and you cannot fight it anyhow. Another creepy part about the Toreadors is how they treat their lovers and their childer. See, Toreadors are the inspiration seekers. They always try to find something that will trigger their sense of beauty. They want to find something that will inspire them and that will make them feel human again for just a second. And very often that something is actually someone. So it can be a very beautiful human being or a very talented person that they take under their wing, either as a mortal bloodbag, maybe as a ghoul, or maybe as a child. The problem with Toreadors, though, is that they do experience boredom or the burnout very quickly. There's no piece of art, there's no human, no vampire in this world which can satiate them fully. Of course, love can last for a long time, the fascination of some object or anything can last for long as well, but at some point they will want to get something more or something different. Eventually, every muse will run out of that juice that feeds the Toreadors, and then they will ditch it. Sometimes even feeling embarrassed because the trends have passed and that person is just not it anymore. How could I even spend so much time with you? With mortals, it's often very gruesome because once their beautiful vampiric partners leave them, mortals are left hollow. They can never find anything like this again. They often kill themselves in the longing. With vampires, though, Well, Toreadors are known as the worst vampire daddies of all. They will embrace you as their child because they want to take you under their wing, and they are so inspired by you, and you're so amazing, and you will make such a great vampire. And once they get bored with you, they just ditch you, and you are left alone with your beast, with your hunger, and with everything horrible that new vampires have to face. Embrace, unfortunately, very often leaves Toreador child lacking that something special, that sort of a culmination to the love that Toreadors were seeking. So once you are a vampire and you are going to be the same forever, well, what can be more boring than that, right? And last but not least, the creepiest part, now the creepiest hacking part of the whole Toreador thing, is of course their sense of beauty and what can they sense as beautiful. I already mentioned some of the more gruesome parts, so, you know, someone can feel that the beheading is really beautiful. But I would love to very quickly share with you my personal concept for the character I'm roleplaying currently. So, when I was asked to take a part in a roleplaying campaign and I was thinking about which character to make, I was thinking about what about making a Toreador which will kind of shatter this whole stereotype of Toreadors being good creatures and their beauty being only based on some works of art. So my concept from the very beginning was to create a Toreador whose biggest beauty, inspiration and everything is humanity. But that doesn't really mean that that particular vampire will aim to have the highest humanity himself, because let's face it, the highest humanity level, as I told you in my previous videos, is Golconda, or the Sanctitude, and that's something that doesn't really define humans on a regular basis. A vampire who is so in love with the concept of being human, of the concept of seeing the sun again, and being able to blend in the mortal society. Well, that sort of a vampire will have very weird feelings once they meet Finnbloods. Finnbloods, especially the lifelike ones, who are able to still walk under the sun, who are able to even have children, well, they turned out to be a huge source of jealousy for my dear vampire. Jealousy that escalated to the point that he started diablerizing them in masses, trying to get their powers, because he falsely thought that the humanity of Finnbloods is just a part of their powers. That's the concept for my Toreador that I'm playing, but I will be very glad for you to share your concepts. I would love to see in your comments the ideas for those original Toreadors, so if you want to share them, please do. Toreadors in the pen and paper book have 3 disciplines. First of them is Auspex, which I talked a little bit about in the previous Tremere video. They do have Auspex mostly to find the resonances and find the humans they will be the most interested in. Basically, as a seekers of inspiration, Auspex allows them to find that inspiration easier. Unfortunately, Auspex is not the discipline which they are going to have in the Bloodlines 2. Instead, they will have their 2 other disciplines, which is Presence and Celerity. Presence in Bloodlines 2 will be both a combat and a social ability. You will be able to use your magnificent presence in the dialogues to make people believe you a little bit more. And also you'll be able to use your active abilities like Awe and Entrance to cause people to follow you, to drag people's attention to you, which can be useful in a lot of situations. Celerity is the supernatural speed, and it's useful both for artists to create something very quickly and for Toreadors in combat. They don't actually have to get their hands dirty, they can just deflect the bullets very quickly in a very gracious way. And this ability will be a combat ability of Toreadors in Bloodlines 2. Their curse in the V5 core book is that they suffer in the ugly environment. So whenever a Toreador is not surrounded by something they consider beautiful, they get penalties to their rolls. Their original curse and their compulsion in the V5 book is how they are getting hypnotized by beautiful things. So when they see something that triggers their compulsion, they just freeze. And as I said, it may be a beautiful work of art, it can be a sun, it can be a person dying on the streets and they just stand above them and the police comes and they arrest you, but you can't really react because you are so entrapped with the beauty of it. Developers of Bloodlines 2 said, very wisely in my opinion, that they obviously can't make it a mechanic in the game, because if your character suddenly froze in the middle of combat because they saw something beautiful, that would be really weird from the gameplay perspective. So instead they took the modern Bane of Toreadors and they changed it a bit so it fits the game mechanics a little bit more. And what will happen in the game is that if a Toreador will not be surrounded by humans, by crowds, by people around, account, they will regenerate their willpower slower. Willpower in the game will be used for additional vampiric abilities shared throughout the clans. So for example, you can use it to look at someone and make them not move from a place for a second, in fear or in awe, depending on the person. Or you can use a special bite in the combat. And all these additional abilities will require willpower points, which Toreadors will not regain as quickly if they are alone in the sewers, in the bad places, ugly places without people to look without an audience. I think it's a very much fitting curse for Toreadors, and also I'm very happy that they shared something about this willpower mechanic, which sounds very interesting. And yeah, I think that's all about the Toreadors for now. I really hope this video was informative. And now about the role-playing, guys. If you want to roleplay with me, I'm a proud Justicar of the Discord server called Seattle by Night. And this particular server is set in the Seattle of Bloodlines 2. We're trying to roleplay our Vampire the Masquerade V5 characters in the setting in which the new game will be set in. There's a lot of help on the server for those of you who are not familiar with the V5 and want to learn more about it. And everyone can jump in and out in any pace because it's a text roleplay. So basically everything happens through writing. You don't have to jump on the voice chats. You can only read and lurk if you want to, or you can join us as a vampire yourself. I'm linking to the Discord channel in the comments, and I cannot wait for my vampire to meet yours. Mostly because my vampire is a blood leech and he drinks blood of other vampires, so, you know, more blood bags for me. Thank you guys very much for joining, and don't get lost in the night. Goodbye.